Welcome back to the Sense Check Lab, where we put today's lifestyle trends under the microscope and fact-check the common sense with scientific researches. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something that's become a real buzzword in health circles, literally bubbling up everywhere. Fermented foods. They've exploded in popularity for their perceived health benefits, but our mission today is to, cut through the noise and explore what the latest researchers truly say about both their incredible advantages and, importantly, their often overlooked potential risks.
Exactly. Our aim in this deep dive is really to equip you, our listener, with a thorough, evidence-based understanding of fermented foods. We want to move beyond just the general hype, help you make truly informed choices about what you might integrate into your diet.
Okay, so let's get right into our central question for this deep dive.
Mm.
Are fermented foods truly beneficial for our health? And what are the scientific insights into their claimed advantages and potential drawbacks?
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. It's where these age-old traditional practices really intersect with cutting-edge modern science. We're essentially investigating a culinary tradition that's, thousands of years old, but now with the precision of today's scientific tools.
So what a history they have.
Oh.
People across the globe have been consuming fermented foods for millennia. It wasn't just about flavor back then, right? It was primarily about preservation. Think about it. Long before refrigeration, fermentation was, well, kind of a genius way to keep food from spoiling.
Indeed. And just to define them clearly, fermented foods are made through desired microbial growth and enzymatic conversions of food components. We're talking about classics like yogurt, kefir, various cheeses, and also global favorites like kimchi, miso, tempeh, and of course the very popular kombucha. These are all products of this fascinating microbial alchemy.
It certainly feels like these foods have seen a massive surge in popularity recently, especially with the growing interest in gut health and maybe a more holistic approach to well-being. Everyone's talking about their microbiome these days.
That's absolutely right. And this brings us to a crucial term, probiotics. Now, these are specifically defined as live microorganisms that, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. What's really vital to clarify here is that while many fermented foods do contain microbes, not all fermented foods are technically probiotic foods.
Ah, okay. That's a key distinction I think many of us miss. So what's the difference there?
While some fermented foods undergo further processing, think pasteurization, baking, maybe filtering, which can actually remove or kill those live microbes. Consider sourdough bread, for example, or canned sauerkraut. They are fermented, but the beneficial live cultures might not survive that processing to reach your gut. So for a food to genuinely be considered probiotic, the researchers tell us it must contain defined, live, and sufficiently numerous microbes. And these microbes need to have a proven health benefit associated with them.
Got it. Okay, so with that important clarification in mind, our working hypothesis for this deep dive is something like fermented foods, particularly those containing the live and active probiotic cultures, probably offer a range of significant health benefits. But their consumption also carries specific risks that consumers should definitely be aware of.
And our objective is precisely that, to provide you with a truly balanced perspective. We want to separate the scientific evidence from, common assumptions and really highlight the why behind these findings so you understand the mechanisms actually at play in your body. Our investigation today, it relies on synthesizing information from various scientific researches. This includes comprehensive medical reviews, established dietary guidelines, and numerous studies focused on nutrition, microbiology, public health, that kind of thing. We've really delved into the existing body of knowledge to bring you the most relevant insights.
Right. And our approach is pretty straightforward. Just extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insights from all these researches to create a comprehensive picture for you. We're not bringing in any new material. Everything we discuss comes directly from the provided researches. Okay, with that foundation laid, let's unpack the really exciting part. What the scientific researchers say about the, remarkable health benefits of these foods. Quite a lot here. Where should we begin?
Let's start where most people do, the gut. Many fermented foods like kombucha, kefir, kimchi, yogurt, miso, tempeh are indeed rich in beneficial probiotics. And these live microbes can profoundly impact your gut microbiome. The researchers consistently highlight improvements in overall digestion and gut function. For example, the probiotics in fermented dairy, like yogurt and kefir, they produce an enzyme, beta-galactosidase, which helps break down lactose. This makes them easier to digest for people with lactose intolerance. That's a big one. They also help normalize the gastrointestinal microbiota, kind of working to antagonize pathogens and protect against harmful colonization. And they can even alleviate irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, symptoms. Specific fermented milk products with certain bacteria have shown real promise there.
That's incredible. So it's not just about making digestion smoother. What about our internal defenses, our immune system?
Absolutely. Fermented foods can significantly boost immunity. They seem to enhance both nonspecific and specific immunity by stimulating something called the mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, or MALT, and the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, GALT, basically stimulating immune tissues in the gut. This can potentially decrease the risk or duration of common infections, respiratory tract, gut, even vaginal tract infections. And yes, the researchers also show they influence pathways that modulate inflammation throughout the body.
Okay, this next one really fascinates me. The connection between our gut and our brain, the gut-brain axis. How do fermented foods play into mental well-being?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is the bidirectional relationship. It goes both ways between your gut and your mental health. Things like depression and anxiety are often linked to gut problems and vice versa. Fermented foods are considered functional foods with the potential to modulate this gut-brain axis. Now, while more human researches are definitely needed, preclinical studies animal studies show benefits for gut function and positive effects in animal models of depression and anxiety. Certain specific probiotic strains, for instance, have been shown in researches to reduce anxiety-like behavior in rats, and even mitigate psychological distress and reduce cortisol levels in humans in some studies.
That's quite profound, isn't it? The idea that food could directly influence your mood. What about other chronic conditions the researchers touched upon? Cardiovascular health.
Yes, for cardiovascular health, researchers have shown fermented dairy products like yogurt and cheese are associated with a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. There's even data suggesting a 2% reduction in CVD and all-cause mortality for increasing intake by just 20 grams per day of cheese, sour milk, or yogurt. It's quite specific. And in hypertensive patients, consuming 2 or more servings of yogurt per week was linked to a significant reduction in heart attack or stroke risk, 17% in women, 21% in men in one study. These foods might also contribute to decreased blood pressure and improved cholesterol profiles, higher HDL, lower triglycerides.
And what about type 2 diabetes or even weight management? Did the researchers show anything there?
They did. The researchers indicate that a Mediterranean diet enriched with fermented dairy could offer benefits in type 2 diabetes prevention and managing blood sugar. Specific probiotic strains have even been shown in models to reduce intestinal mucosal permeability and inflammatory markers linked to T2D. And yes, some researchers also suggest a potential role for fermented dairy, particularly yogurt, in weight management, though that connection needs more study.
Were there any other, maybe surprising benefits from individual fermented foods that caught your eye in the researches? Little nuggets.
Yes, definitely a few. Kimchi, for instance. It's not only nutrient-dense good source of iron, folate, vitamins B6 and K, but also low in calories. And some researchers even suggest it might help slow the aging process. Interesting, huh? Then there's tempeh, that fermented soybean product. It's a complete source of vegetarian protein, with potential benefits suggested for cognitive function, maybe lung, liver, and bone health too. And miso, according to a 2020 BMJ study, was associated with a reduced chance of dying early. Kefir, another one, full of calcium, potentially useful for neurological disorders. Other potential benefits mentioned include increased bone density, maybe helping treat allergies, even improving oral health, reducing tooth decay, gum issues. So these examples really show how broad the potential benefits might extend, well beyond just gut health. So, okay, what does all this actually mean for you, the listener? If we connect the dots between these diverse findings, a clearer picture begins to emerge regarding how these foods really work.
All right, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because the common thread in all these benefits seems to be the incredible, often unseen power of microorganisms.
Exactly. The beneficial effects of many fermented foods largely stem from the live microorganisms, the probiotics they contain. These microbes don't just, passively live in your gut. They actively work to modify and modulate intestinal function. They do this by producing things like short-chain fatty acids, metabolizing bile acid salts, and even producing neurochemicals that influence various body systems. When we talk about that gut-brain connection, for example, These foods can potentially influence inflammation, help restore the integrity of your intestinal barrier, supporting those important tight junction proteins, and even modulate the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, which is central to your body's stress response.
So it's not just about adding good bacteria, it's much more about what those specific bacteria do in your body once they get there, is that right?
Precisely. And it's crucial to understand strain specificity. The researches clearly show that not all probiotic strains offer the same benefits. It's like, specific keys for specific locks. This means amounts matter. And knowing the specific strain, the genus, species, and that strain designation is key if you're targeting a particular health benefit. Furthermore, the researchers suggest that the benefits of, say, fermented dairy might also be due to what's called the food matrix effect. That's the synergy of all the nutrients within the food itself working together, not just individual components in isolation.
Okay, this is all sounding incredibly positive. But while the benefits are clear and genuinely exciting, we absolutely must address the other side, the potential downsides, the risks. What you need to be cautious about, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it?
You're right, it's not. First, for many people, especially when initially introducing fermented foods into their diet, digestive discomfort can be a common side effect. This includes things like bloating, gas, an uncomfortable feeling of fullness, and sometimes even constipation or diarrhea. This is often just your body adjusting to the new influx of microorganisms. Moderation is definitely key, especially when you're just starting out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Your gut needs a little time to get used to the new tenets, so to speak.
Yeah.
But what about more serious concerns? This is where I know the researchers had some truly stark warnings.
Yes, and this is where food safety risks become absolutely crucial, especially if you're thinking about preparing these foods at home. The main risks with fermented foods really arise from using contaminated ingredients, contaminated water or milk, for instance, or from poor hygiene practices during preparation, using damaged containers or cross-contamination.
So it's really about how they're made then, the process itself.
Absolutely. Preparation errors are a significant concern highlighted in the researches. Not following proven recipes accurately, using insufficient starter culture, or importantly, using decayed vegetables, these can all lead to failed fermentation, and that allows harmful microbes to grow instead of the beneficial ones. Also, things like fluctuating temperatures, incorrect oxygen levels, using insufficient salt, or a delay in achieving a sufficiently low pH. All these factors can unfortunately allow harmful bacteria to reproduce.
And I've definitely heard about some truly dangerous toxins potentially associated with fermented foods, like something called bongkrek acid. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, this is perhaps the most critical warning from the researchers regarding food safety. Bongkrek acid. It's a potent and, frankly, often fatal toxin produced by a specific bacterium, Burkholderia cocovinans. Historically, it's been tied to severe tragic outbreaks, particularly from Tempe bongkrek, which is a fermented coconut byproduct in Indonesia, and also from certain fermented corn flour products, for example, in China and Mozambique. What bongkrek acid does is really insidious. It inhibits a crucial protein in your mitochondria, basically preventing your cells from producing energy, ATP.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. What are the symptoms if someone were exposed? How quickly does it act?
Symptoms can include dizziness, excessive sweating, vomiting, severe abdominal pain, and often, sadly, death can occur within just 1 to 20 hours. A fatal dose can be incredibly small, as low as 1 to 1.5 milligrams. And what makes it particularly dangerous, and this is vital, is that bongkrek acid is thermostable. That means cooking does not destroy the toxin. If it's in the food, heating it won't make it safe. This is a very, very serious concern, primarily for improper home fermentation of certain ingredients like coconut and corn.
Wow, okay. That's a truly stark warning. Are there other dangerous pathogens that have been linked in the researches to fermented foods?
Unfortunately, yes. The researchers have documented outbreaks linked to other pathogens too. Things like certain strains of E. coli, sometimes found in kimchi, potentially from contaminated water, or maybe too short fermentation times. Also S. aureus, other coliform bacteria in certain fermented milk drinks, and salmonella. Even hepatitis A virus has been traced back to fermented raw clams in some cases. And other potential risks mentioned under certain conditions include mycotoxicosis from molds and botulism. There was even a link suggested between Nipah virus transmission from bats and fermented palm sap called tari in some regions. It really underscores the absolute importance of strict food safety protocols.
So food safety is paramount, especially for home fermentation, using specific ingredients. What about store-bought options? Are they always safe, or do they have different issues?
Well, with commercial products, a different consideration comes up. Many commercially available fermented foods are often pasteurized or heated to high temperatures for shelf stability and safety. The downside is this process usually kills off most, if not all, of the beneficial live microbes. So while safer from certain contamination risks, they may lack the useful probiotic content you might be looking for. Exceptions often include commercial yogurts and some other fermented dairy products which are specifically processed to retain live cultures. Look for labels saying that. Also, just something to keep in mind, many fermented foods like miso or sauerkraut can be quite high in sodium, which is a dietary consideration for many people.
Right, the salt content. And finally, just touching on the science itself, what about the limitations in the researches? Where does the science still need to catch up?
That's a great point. This is particularly relevant for some of the newer areas, like the mental health benefits in humans. The researches in this area are often described as sparse, heterogeneous, meaning they use different methods in populations, making them hard to compare, and they often have significant limitations. Many findings still rely heavily on preclinical animal studies or on studies using specific probiotic supplements rather than looking at general fermented food consumption. So definitely more large-scale, well-designed human trials, like randomized controlled trials, are needed to really understand these complex connections and long-term impacts. So to kind of wrap up what we've learned from the researches about fermented foods, they genuinely offer some exciting health potential, but responsible consumption and, crucially, responsible preparation are absolutely paramount.
Okay, so what does all this mean for you, our listener, when you're standing in the supermarket aisle or maybe thinking about trying fermentation at home?
Well, I think it means maintaining a balanced view. Fermented foods can certainly be a valuable addition to a healthy diet, particularly for gut health, potentially boosting immunity, and maybe for other areas like cardiovascular health and even mental well-being, largely thanks to their potential probiotic content when those live microbes are present.
So what are the key takeaways, the things you should really remember?
Okay, first, if you're specifically seeking those probiotic benefits, prioritize fermented foods that are explicitly labeled with live and active cultures. And if possible, look for specific strain information, although that's often harder to find. Second, start small and listen to your body. Introduce these foods gradually into your diet. This allows your digestive system to adjust and helps minimize any initial discomfort like gas or bloating. Third, focus on diversity. Don't just stick to one type. Include a variety of different fermented foods in your diet to potentially get a broader spectrum of beneficial microbes.
And the most important advice, perhaps, especially if you're tempted by home fermenting.
Absolutely. Food safety comes first. It cannot be stressed enough. If you're making fermented foods at home, strictly follow proven, reliable recipes. Ensure excellent hygiene throughout the process to prevent contamination. And be especially wary of homemade fermented products made from coconut or corn, given that severe, potentially fatal risk of boric acid we discussed. Always be mindful of the product's appearance and smell. If it seems off, don't risk it. Finally, remember that fermented foods are just one part of an overall healthy dietary pattern. Support your gut health holistically. That means a diet rich in fiber from whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, beans. Include prebiotics, food for the good bacteria, polyphenol-rich foods like berries, nuts, seeds, green tea, and healthy omega-3 fatty acids from sources like fatty fish, walnuts, and flax seeds. It's about the whole picture. As we wrap up this deep dive, it's quite something to consider. These ancient culinary traditions, often born out of sheer necessity for preservation, are now being precisely decoded by cutting-edge scientific researches. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other everyday practices, things that seem simple on the surface, might hold profound health secrets just waiting for our modern tools to reveal their deeper wisdom? Maybe the future of wellness is partly found in rediscovering and understanding our past.
That's a truly thought-provoking idea to leave us with. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Sense Check Lab. We hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating world of fermented foods with us. If you found this deep dive helpful or interesting, please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an update. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family, and maybe leave us a comment with your thoughts or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover next. Your support and feedback really do help us keep bringing you the science behind the trends. Until next time, stay curious and stay well.